There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Perla Martinez. I am the DEI Administrator for the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I am joined today by a lovely panel of women who will be joining me in a conversation about celebrating Older Americans Month, which is May, every year in May. And I will start with Director Wingo.
Good afternoon. I am Shonda Wingo, your director for our Franklin County Office on Aging. Here at the Office on Aging, we focus on providing both home and community-based support to allow our older adults to age in place as long as possible, safely and securely. That could be anything from your free delivered meals to minor home repair to transportation services. And we are happy to have this conversation today.
Katie?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Katie White. I'm the director of the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging. We are one of 622 regional offices on aging in the US, and we are here because of the Older Americans Act, which legislates that every US citizen have a regional office on aging that plans, informs, funds, and provides various services. The mission of the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging is to inform and support people as they navigate the experience of aging and disability. We have roughly 405 employees on staff, the majority of whom are licensed social workers or nurses, as well as a number of community health workers and a plethora of other staff members, really here dedicated to providing the in-home case management and coordination of services. Thanks again for having me.
Hi, thanks so much for the opportunity to be here among these great leaders. My name is Marisa Sheldon. I'm the director of Age Friendly Columbus and Franklin County. We're a program of the Ohio State University College of Social Work. We joined the Age Friendly Network, which is owned by the World Health Organization, and here in the US, the AARP Livables Community Network in 2016 as the City of Columbus, and 2018 as Franklin County through the Board of Commissioners support. And what that means is that we work alongside older adults to improve our built environment, our social environment, and any other parts of the lives that touch older adults through their lived experience. And we do that through community engagement, research, and education. And looking forward to talking more.
Thank you to all three of you for joining me today again, and just kind of talking a little bit about what your agencies do. So the theme for Older Americans Month this year is Powered by Connection. And I really want to focus on that conversation for this Lunch and Learn. We do know that isolation and loneliness are some things that our older adults really struggle with, which can in turn have an effect on their social, emotional, physical, mental well-being. I can start with Director Wingo. What are some of the services that the Office on Aging provides? What are some of the things that they've seen when it comes to this situations of which, how older adults come to be in the situations of isolation and loneliness? And if you have some numbers to provide around that, that would be great also.
Yes, so I can tell you that with the onset of the pandemic, social isolation became a significant barrier for our older adults. With the stay-at-home orders, there were safety, a lot of concerns around, being exposed to the COVID-19 virus. And so as we began to venture back to coming into the new normal, a lot of our older adults did not identify with this new normal and chose to remain in their homes and chose to remain in a state of social isolation. And so here at the Office on Aging, we've also identified within our current caseload, we have about 6,000 to 7,000 seniors that are also identified as senior orphans. And what this means is they don't have any family, they didn't have any children, or any family members that they may have had have since passed on. And so our response to that is fostering relationships with other community partners or hosting our own events. Our major event, which is coming up June 27th, is Clippers Day. Clippers Day is a phenomenal event. It is one of my favorite events. When you see the joy on the faces of our seniors as they are unloading the motor coach buses, coming into the stadium, watching the game, enjoying a hot dog, that is a great way for our seniors to come out and enjoy the day and get acclimated with one another. Another signature event that we host is Spring Forward. We hosted our annual event on May the 2nd. Another great way for our seniors to come out and get connected, not just to our office, but other supportive services within the community. But it's also a day where they can just come together and socialize and hang out, get free produce. The third event that we host is our senior wellness jamboree, which is in partnership with the Columbus City Parks and Rec. It is a day focused on active movement, but also just coming together. There's line dancing, there's chair exercising. You also take the walk, the challenge, there's free lunch, just another great way for our seniors to come out and get connected. Through our programs, we also offer other alternatives through our Senior Options Program, which is a levy-funded program. And I'll take a moment to thank our voters for passing that levy yet again, because without your support, none of these programs are available. But Senior Options provides adult daycare and transportation. And one key feature with our transportation is there's a component that allows us to not just focus on medical appointments, but if you have a family member that lives on the other side of town, you're able to utilize this service to go and visit or plan outings with your friends and your family using that service. One of our other initiatives, which we started approximately 2 years ago, directly to target our senior orphans, we send birthday cards every month. And it's a simple gesture, but we send about 800 a month to our seniors, and overwhelmingly, they enjoy that connectedness because no one else is reaching in to say how you're doing or happy birthday. And the fact that we know it's their birthday and we acknowledge their birthday and we send those cards out every month, it goes over well. I can't tell you how many thank you cards we get every month to say, hey, thank you for thinking about me, but also thank you for all that you do over at the Office on Aging. We also provide about close to $4 million to our community partners, such as Central Community House, NCUS Tech, Gladden Community House. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but all of those programs also support social connectedness, whether it is you're coming to a classroom to learn about technology or whether you are coming to a congregate dining site so that you can come and be around your peers, but also enjoy a nutritious meal. We have multiple ways that we are targeting connectedness for our seniors.
Thank you for that information, Director Wingo. And I know a lot of this will be put on the chat, just so people out there know about these events that the Office on Aging has coming up. And I really appreciate you mentioning just the pandemic as a vital, like not vital, but like pivotal moment of, just kind of social isolation for seniors. I think that there was a lot, also fear around, just getting sick and not wanting to go out and just kind of stayed in home. But community is where we thrive, right? And I think it is very important for having these programs and these opportunities available for older adults in our community, especially here in Franklin County, that they are able to go out there and enjoy themselves, maybe like they haven't in a long time, especially with, Clippers Day. I know I've attended Clippers Day with my mother-in-law, who also receives services through the Franklin County Office on Aging. And she will usually talk about just how she used to, like, obviously not go to the stadium particularly, but like used to go like to baseball games when she was younger, right? And it's such a core memory for her. That is just, I feel like really appreciative that we have these opportunities for citizens. Katie, can you mention, I know you guys have a particular program that deals with connectivity. Can you speak a little bit more about that? And the importance of it?
Sure. So just to kind of add a little bit based on what Director Wingo shared. So the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging, the Franklin County Office on Aging, and Age Friendly Innovation Center all work really well together. And one really great way to showcase that is that some of the programs that the county levy funds, we also fund as the Area Agency on Aging, but our funding has restrictions that then the county levy can support in different ways because they don't have those same restrictions. And so what I love about the way that our organizations work together is it's really person-centered, right? To say, what do the folks in our community say they want and need, and how do we best make that work between the levy funding or the federal funding or the state funding? And so it really ends up being this sort of ongoing evaluation process to say, what do we need? And the pandemic was a really difficult example of that, but also a really great way to showcase how we can all come together and say, what are you doing? Okay, you're going to allow for free meals for everybody, then that means we're going to shift something over here. And so I think social isolation is going to be no different. And, you know, the Surgeon General report that came out, I think last year or 2 years ago, really showcases not only that physical effect that social isolation can have on an individual, but also on our population. And so it's just really great to see kind of how we all are utilizing our different assets to come together and meet those needs. So all that to say, in addition to funding some of the organizations in Central Ohio that also support home delivered meals or transportation or socialization programs, or volunteer connections, we also have a number of services that as COAAA we offer. So our case management, of course, we are outreaching to individuals to make sure that we are checking in on what they might need in terms of service coordination. We're visiting them in their home to really lay eyes and hear and see and feel what we might anticipate that they need, or just to say, you know, I know you're having falls and we see this rug here and maybe we should think about, you know, some home modifications. So that's really the foundational crucial piece of what we do. At any point in time across our region, we're case managing a little over 10,000 individuals, many of whom live alone. And so we are that really important piece and connection to making sure people have what they need and also checking in on them, of course. We also do a number of outreach events. We don't necessarily host our own in the way that the FCOA really does a great job in, but we try to be out there and sharing our communication. And then we also have something called our Friendly Caller program. So individuals that case managers identify that just, you know, need a little bit more connection, are really feeling lonely or isolated, not seeing a lot of people, not connecting with a lot of people, their case manager can refer to one of our volunteer coordinators, and then she liaises and trains volunteers to then outreach and call those individuals, and just to truly have friendly conversation so that people don't feel so isolated or so left out.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that information. And I will touch here in a little bit about how all three of you also, just like you mentioned, kind of play, like work and support one another in all the service that you provide. Marisa, can you speak to us a little bit about the work that Age Friendly does? I know that you mentioned to me that it is a little bit different than what Office on Aging and the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging does. So can you speak a little bit more about that, and then we can go from there?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. So we look at our community through the lens of what the World Health Organization has defined as domains. And those are all the different places that impact the lives of older adults and honestly everyone in our community, and they will not come as a surprise. Transportation, housing, employment, lots of different areas. And it's amazing to me, we often are having conversations with older adults, whether that's through interviews or focus groups, to learn more about their experience. And if we start a conversation around transportation, around housing, around any type of topic, it almost always comes back to connection and community. And we know that that is so critical. And so when we think about transportation, we know here in Central Ohio and here in Franklin County, we are similar to the rest of the nation. that older adults will need to get places beyond their driving retirement between 7 and 10 years, yet the vast majority of us drive. And that is our only means of transportation. And so when we think about our transportation initiatives, we've done a lot of different projects. One in particular I'll highlight is our work around older adult circulators within communities and neighborhoods. We've launched a couple of those in partnership with community organizations. And oftentimes what we hear when we follow up with folks and do that evaluation is that there are people that are just riding to spend time with others. There are people that are seeing that as their outing for the day, regardless of if they really needed to get to the grocery store. They probably, needed a few things, but it was that connection. And that is just echoed across so many of the parts of our work. And then I will also talk about what we also hear is that community and connection is a protective factor. We are all going to experience challenges across our life in a space that we've been spending a lot of time in and learning and trying to create more systems and structures is around emergency preparedness. We all know that extreme weather is happening in a way that has not happened before, and that older adults are uniquely vulnerable to that extreme weather. And so what we've also learned is that when you have a larger support system, when you are more connected, when you have someone who you can say, I have to be evacuated because of a power outage, a fire, a tornado, whatever it might be, flooding, you can go to their home. Not everyone has that. And the more that we're building that community connection, the more protective factors we have as individuals.
That is a very important point that you touched on that I think, so everything that everything that you've said so far, all three of you, I feel like there are points that a lot of people don't think about on a regular basis, especially when it comes to older adults we're all aging, right? At some point, we're all gonna get there. And it's something that we don't even think about. From something like, Katie, you mentioned like a rug, like something as innocuous as a rug that can be such a like tripping or falling hazard for an older adult to, there's a tornado warnings. I mean, how many tornado warnings have we had this year so far here in Ohio, which is unprecedented, right? I've been here about, and I don't remember it being like this. And just thinking about older adults who are alone in their homes, who don't have anyone to reach to. So that brings me to a question here, and you all three can answer in your own different ways. What is one big misconception or misunderstanding, or several, if they can come to your mind when it comes to older adults and their needs? Director Wingo?
You touched on something around us all aging, and it reminds me of the buttons of Age Friendly. So I want to give them a shout out. Aging is so cool, everybody's doing it. And so keep that in your mind. And so I will say that, we've done a lot of work, the three of us, whether we were in our current seat or in other seats, but as agencies, we've collaborated over the years. And we did a community needs assessment, the Central Ohio assessment that we did in 2021. And what we know is that 94% of our Franklin County seniors say that it's very important to them to age in place. Now, everybody has a different definition of what age in place is, right? For us, we know that it means that we want to be able to support our seniors so they can stay in their home as long as possible and not have to go to a facility because they're no longer able to care for themselves. And so what I do know in my own experience, and even in my own personal life, I am a sandwich generation. My mom lives in my household as well as my 3 children. Seniors don't ask for help. They don't ask for help. And so the first thing that I want to make sure that everyone knows is if you know a senior, go see them, go check on them, go say hello, sit with them for a minute, bring them some lunch. It is unmeasurable to tell, how impactful that is to a senior. But if you engage with your seniors in a way to where you're just trying to bridge that social connectedness, you'll also learn that there's other needs. And, for example, I mentioned that the Franklin County Office on Aging is a levy-funded agency. Oftentimes, seniors look at this as a handout, but it's levy dollars that comes from taxpayers. And so you've paid for this service and we're here for you. And so, anyone that is listening to this that didn't know about these agencies or didn't know about the Franklin County Office on Aging, take notes and share it with the seniors that you know, or share it with the people who are in your networks who have seniors. Because the knowledge of knowing what's out there and what's available to them is key. And seniors are more inclined to listen to the people that are in their lives than they are to listen to us sitting on this live stream saying, here, we're here for you, because they're like, no, I don't need that yet. Our stance is we want to make sure that you do know that we're available, and we want you to take advantage of these systems before it becomes a crisis. Being able to utilize a transportation to go to a doctor's appointment and not drive because maybe your vision isn't what it used to be, or maybe there's so much construction and they've changed the roads where it's unrecognizable. There's no shame in that. You are still, you know, alive and well. Utilize those services to maintain your independence.
Marisa, I'm worried I'm going to say the same one as you. Is yours about technology? Oh, good. Okay. So I would say one of the common misconceptions is around interest in use of technology and the internet and social media. Director Wingo mentioned the Regional Assessment on Aging, and we've got this great publicly facing dashboard that I often pull up, just like I do right now, to look at some of the data. But 93% of respondents said that they use the internet, and this is, you know, older adult individuals across the region. The majority of which are using cell phones and computers and tablets. And so really this notion of older adults not being interested in tech or not being tech savvy, I think is one of the things we really need to work on decreasing. What we found is it's actually more about income and the ability to afford the devices or to afford the internet. That's really more of the barrier to utilizing technology than is age. So that's my aha moment that I want to make sure everybody knows.
Thank you.
Yeah, I am so appreciative, Director Ringo, for you mentioning those buttons and that work, because that really leads in to what I wanted to talk about, which is ageism, and this notion that I think exists in our community when you are not yourself an older adult, and sometimes when you are, that it's this us versus them proposition, when really it is all of us. We are all aging, and the goal for each of us is often to age in our community. And so the work that I think about now is so that I have a community I want to age in, and my kids have that community. And so when I think about it from an ageism perspective, we know that there are lots of parts of our systems and our government and our structures that are not designed to think about that diversity, equity, and inclusion lens, and age is a part of that. There are many pieces and parts that are entrenched in our systems. And so we really always ask folks to reflect on that and to think about what part of your hiring process might be ageist, what part of your, and not come up with examples right now, I apologize, live, but what other parts of your work and your life might be playing into that ageism. And just a note that that has real impact on our health and our longevity. The research shows internalized ageist views can take up to 7 years off your life. And so if you don't want to think about it for others, think about it for yourself and those extra 7 years of life that you might be able to enjoy.
Some schools of thought would tell you that ageism is one of the social determinants of health.
Yeah, when you think about, you know, what events are going on, and you mentioned the Clippers game, and one of the great things about having an FCOA day there is it decreases any of those stereotypes related to like sports events are for young people or for people without disabilities. And I think that ageism piece, even when I think about myself, when I'm thinking about places I might go, I even have my own inherent ageism around like, oh, I might be too old for that. And it's like, we have to work on really squashing that and creating inclusive places, not only socially, but at, you know, the doctor's appointments, at the sporting events, to make sure it's not about, so that we don't further instill that fear of, I shouldn't go there, I'm not wanted there, right, because of my age.
That is, so you all touch on some points, very important points. I mean, Marisa, when you talked about, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then Katie, you just talked about disabilities and ageism, and then how those two at some point can become like, I mean, can be correlated, right? I mean, you start aging and you, I mean, maybe will become, I mean, will have like different abilities once you age, right? And people are not thinking about those situations either. Or how, I know, Marissa, you talk about a lot of like, how can we make communities more inclusive, right, for age friendly? And I mean, age friendly does that, right? Um, and I love that you guys have focus groups to just kind of hear what the community, especially older adults, are looking for. Can you talk a little bit about your focus groups when it talks to about what the interest of like older adults or what they're looking in their communities for or things like
Yeah,
that?
so I'm happy to. I'll give a little background that the age-friendly framework that I know I've mentioned, the World Health Organization defined, asks you to assess your community, create a plan, and then implement that plan on a 5-year cycle. And you just kind of keep repeating it. Some communities do that through a large-scale assessment, similar to the assessment that's gotten mentioned today, we did in 2021. And something that has been foundational for the work of Age Friendly Columbus and Franklin County is that listening and that assessment never ends, because things evolve and we are always in a space to learn. So over the years, we've engaged with thousands of older adults in Franklin County to listen in various ways, whether that's through interviews, whether that's through walking or bike audits of our community and hearing their experience. We recently hosted a review of the State House around how it works for people with disabilities and older adults. And then those more traditional focus groups where we're sitting down, talking through a topic and hearing what that looks and feels like for older adults. And I kind of jokingly say, who better to tell me what it feels like to learn to use the bus than an 80-year-old using the bus for the first time, than an 80-year-old using the bus for the first time. We call them experience experts, the folks in our community who are lending their voice. And yeah, it's honestly one of my favorite parts of my job. I love the space to be surprised. I love the space to be challenged, because I don't have the answers, but the answers lie in our community and with the folks who are living this every day.
If I could piggyback off of why those focus groups are important and why they need to be continuous. One of the things, if you've ever heard me speak before, I like to put in the forefront is this is the last year for our baby boomers to turn 60. Next year is the first wave for Generation X. So if you put that in perspective, we'll be serving the silent generation, the greatest generation, baby boomers, and Generation X. And each generation has a variance of experience, access. You know, it's going to be very different for our Generation X than it is for our baby boomers. We grew up with more technology. We have access to computers. We use social media and smartphones, and it's integrated in our life, which is much different than the generations prior. So that type of work has to be continuous to ensure that the needs are being met, because what we did 30 years ago to support seniors is not working today, and it won't work a year from now.
I'd like to add to that too. I think another one of sort of the authentically powerful pieces that the three of us often connect on is the fact that we are creating those inclusive spaces continuously to make sure that we're hearing from those that are living it, but also creating like a lasting platform for those voices to matter, for those voices to be valued, for those voices to be heard. So that, you know, all the generations that are 60 plus now or 85 plus now, but then also for us, right? And our kids to continue that legacy of talk to the people who are experiencing these things, make sure that your processes are continually being evaluated. And then for Director Wingo and I, make sure that your funds are going into those places that the residents are saying are truly important and crucial to their well-being.
There's so much to this conversation. I'm so glad that we're having it. I mean, because it's just an eye opener. I mean, personally, I mean, to me, just and to hear about all the work that you do in your agencies or your respective workplaces in the community, that I had no idea that exists. And I think that that is just like Director Wingo mentioned, you know, one of the biggest pieces of how we can build connection with our older adults. And I mean, and just intergenerational, right? I mean, me as a millennial talking to, you know, my baby boomer, like mother-in-law, or my mother is a Gen Xer, and just kind of how like those conversations can take place about what is it that they need, and not only also in the community, but also in their homes or in my home if it comes to be that they come to live with me, or and touching on the intergenerational piece. And Katie mentioned a little bit about technology. I know Franklin County Office on Aging has a very interesting, fun program that combines both older adults and teenagers using technology. Director Wingo, can you speak on it a bit?
Absolutely, that's one of my favorites. So what we did is we partnered with various youth leadership programs throughout Franklin County and developed what we've been calling tech drop-ins. And so what we do with the high school seniors and our seniors, the seniors come with whatever technology questions or concerns they have, whether it's just a question or they might bring their device, whether it's a Fitbit, smartphone, laptop, and they sit with the high school seniors and they just like listen. And I wasn't really anticipating the types of things that seniors would be interested in. And it was kind of funny to me. Like one of the first questions was like, how do I unfriend somebody on Facebook? And so those types of interactions fostered more than I could have ever imagined. So what you would see is our older adults and our high school seniors were working through the technology. The high school senior was taking notes, outlining everything that they explained to the senior. And by the end of the day, they were changing life stories, and they were engaging in conversation in a way that let me know what we already know through what we read, but just seeing it yourself, like there really is not much difference between high school seniors and our older adults. There's a lot of commonality, and many of them have maintained those relationships even beyond the tech drop-in that we're doing. So we are still looking for opportunities to connect with youth programs. So anyone that is listening, please reach in. We are more than welcome. We will bring the seniors and we will bring the food because seniors like to have dinner. Both the seniors, high school seniors, and our older adults like to have food. But yeah, it was a hit. Every time we do it, our seniors are like, when's the next one? So we are looking to do more of that because it really was another way to bridge that social connectedness, but also just really teach our young people, like, you need to take a different look at our older generation. They're not much different than you. They've lived longer, they have more experiences, but you'll find that there's a lot of commonality through that connection.
And I, first of all, also obsessed with that program. I think it's the coolest. Anything intergenerational, I just feel like is so important for lots of reasons, not only for the connection and the teaching, but the parallel to having so many more older adults in the community is also that just by sheer numbers and volume, right, the needs are increasing as well. And we don't have enough people in aging and disability services now. We are projected to have, huge shortfalls in the workforce. But one of the best antidotes to that, studies show, is intergenerational exposure and connection for young adults. That really greatly increases the likelihood that they might go into a career in aging. And so it all sort of feeds into each other and is so important in all these various ways. And as I think about, in particular right now, we have a huge caregiving shortage. But when I was younger, I started off as a caregiver and I stayed in this career of aging. And so thinking about these social and informational exchanges and how we might be able to kind of transform those into some career ladders into the aging and disability world is super exciting and top of mind for me.
So appreciate that. And the word that keeps coming to mind, older adult I worked with on a program years ago would always talk about intergenerational reciprocity. We all have something to offer and give. It's not one way and not one directional. And when I think about, Katie, you talking about that workforce, I so agree. That has been something that pre-COVID, we did not have enough folks who wanted to work in aging. And now we are truly at a crisis point. I've known Katie a long time. We worked together many years ago at the Alzheimer's Association and then together in other roles. And I jokingly will share that she sometimes will say, like, let's do the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but aging. Tell me your career goals, and I'm going to tell you how you're going to work with older adults. Because if you think you want to work with kids, well, guess what? They have parents or grandparents that might be raising them. If you are in the business of people, if you want to interact with people in your job, which is basically all of us, you are in the business of aging. You have the potential to understand or to impact the lives of older adults. And so we host being a part of the university, education is a core part of our mission. We host an age-friendly scholars program every autumn where we take students across discipline and embed them in the aging world and what that looks like. And oftentimes one of their favorite time or sessions with us and our age-friendly scholar sessions is when they're just with older adults. Getting to have that conversation. We did that at a long-term care community last year. We did an intergenerational photo shoot on a COTA bus and in a park downtown last year. And those days were so special. It created lasting relationship because it was just time to be together and connect without that agenda. And just really appreciate that call back to that exposure being such a big part of that workforce solution.
Yeah, we have 283,000 children living in the household with a grandparent just here in Franklin County. If you go to any school, you're going to see grandparents, whether you want to or not. And so it's kind of inevitable. And when we talk about the population, we know nationally that there's more than 11,000 people turning 65 every day. And projections show that there's going to be more seniors than there are kindergartners by 2030.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we bring this intergenerational piece to the forefront when you consider those numbers alone. We're going to be an aging society, and we need to make sure that our young people and our older adults are connected at every turn.
And it speaks again, right, we're circling back to the power of connection. And, Marisa, how you said, it's always a two-way street, what you gain and what they gain just from having these conversations, from having this exposure, from building these relationships. Something that comes to mind is like, I grew up in my household with my grandparents. Like they lived there since I was born, and, I moved out, and then lost both of them a couple of years ago, but it's always a fond memory to me, and I'm trying to instill that in my children of like having time with their grandparents as much as they can, of everything that they would come to me for as I was, growing up as a teenager, and things, that they needed help with. I remember my grandmother, like the first time that she opened up her own Facebook account page, and I just remember but just all the things that they passed down to me, from their own experiences to family recipes to just kind of like holding that piece of history of our family, and everything that I could learn from them. And a lot of times right now, the one thing that I say is like, oh yeah, my grandparents, oh, I learned it from them, oh, they taught me how to do this. And I think that now as a society, we've moved away from, what was the extended family, and we focused so much, we came to build these like nuclear families, that a lot of those spaces where we could share those experiences just kind of went away. And just the importance of having that community and that connection for older adults again, now that you mentioned it. I mean, and just the fact that, a lot of times are the grandparents or the older adults taking care of a child, and how can we strengthen those bonds to the services that you guys are providing?
And it's important across so many different facets, right? Like today, we're obviously talking a lot about connection, but we've talked about emergency preparedness. We're in the middle of a housing crisis, right? And so thinking about these multi-generational homes and intergenerational relationships, whether it's family or non-family or home sharing, right? Like that social fabric and connection of the intergenerational is going to be so important for our community for lots of reasons. Connection, of course, but like I said, all these other things that are really impacted by it, and we can all learn from each other and benefit from it in a lot of ways. I have older neighbors that if I'm running late, I can text and say, hey, can you make sure, Walt, my son, gets off the bus and gets in the house, right? So it goes both ways.
Your story, Perla, resonates so much thinking about the students we work with. And so often those that are in school knowing they want to work with older adults, it's because of that relationship with a grandparent.
Mhm.
And I would take it even a step further and build off what Katie said. It doesn't have to be a relative. Not everyone is
Mhm.
lucky enough to have grandparents in their lives or nearby. It can be a neighbor, it can be a friend's parents, however you can be a better community member to older adults. There's no limit to that. And we talked a lot about some of the services that exist, and I think about like our villages here in town and the way that they really support older adults in their neighborhoods. And I bet that if you've got kids, they could help your older neighbor with those big trash cans that are so big, I don't even want to bring them down the driveway. There's always a way to be a good neighbor and to build relationship with folks that are older than you.
I agree. Even if
Yeah.
it's cutting the grass.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
to your point earlier, Director Wingo, saying hi, just
Mhm.
Yeah.
walk over, whatever. I had these tulips in my yard and then, somebody's got tomatoes in their yard and then all of a sudden, you're on your sidewalk and you're talking to each other. But those small interactions are really important. So there's, you can measure how many quality or deep connections you have, but also a lot of those everyday connections are super important. So whether it's your neighbors or someone at a grocery store or someone on the bus, making sure that we're providing that space to, say an extra hello or compliment an outfit or ask them a question. It really does matter.
That's great. So we're getting close to the end of this lunch and learn. Can you talk a little bit about what can we do? I know we already touched on it a little bit. What can we do as a county and as a community to keep supporting older residents in our communities?
So anytime I talk about this, I say my language is, aging is now more multi-generational than ever before. And there's not going to be enough, and I think Katie kind of touched on it with regard to the workforce, there's not going to be enough resources, meaning that's the workforce or dollars or agencies or things of that nature. And so if you are in a space where you have an older adult, we need you to consider being their caregiver. We need you to consider developing that relationship beyond what it is today to make sure that our seniors are able to age in place. We're not going to be able, none of us are going to be able to do this work without the help of the community. So I really want to stress that the importance of just connecting with your older adults, arming yourself with the information and encouraging them to get connected to the services that are available so that they can age in place successfully.
I've been writing so many notes this whole time. It's like, and I know you guys and I work in this, but it's fun to talk about. We don't often get this opportunity. Of course, agree with that. I think one of the main things we also need to be pushing is decreasing ageism, whether it's in ourselves and those little anecdotal things they say, like, oh, I'm getting old or whatever that might be. Because the more we're all afraid to age, the less we are open to asking for proactive care, asking questions or pre-planning for anything, right? If people don't want to be old, then they're not going to necessarily identify with that early enough to do some of the preventative thinking and planning that we know is crucial if you want to be able to remain in place as you age. And so thinking about ourselves, making sure that we are cautiously and respectfully, maybe, stopping individuals if they are making ageist remarks and jokes, and just really trying to make sure that aging is revered in our community instead of feared.
You stole mine, Katie, but I'm just going to piggyback.
Sorry.
You're fine. I mean, the fact that we're having this conversation through the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, I had to make mine around ageism. And I think, we've all gotten, well, not everyone, but I think we're getting more and more comfortable with this idea of being anti-racist and not being ableist, but really like challenging folks where you're at around ageism and calling them in. If your kids are in school, does their school participate in the 100-day celebration? And how do they do that? Do they have folks dress up in white powdery wigs and with a walker? Well, maybe you gently suggest to them that this year they do something else, writing 100 notes to a neighbor or covering a shirt in 100 buttons. There's so many ways. does your organization, your employer name age in their DEI statement? We know from research that about 5% of businesses do, and we have a long way to go if that's where we're at. And then thinking about it from local governments, we have a lot of municipalities here in Central Ohio that look to the Board of Commissioners and all of that for guidance and to learn. And that is a front door for so many of our residents. And there are places that we can reduce that ageism within our systems and just challenge everyone to take that step back and think about it through that lens.
I think so important, Marissa, or that we've mentioned sometimes in this conversation, ageism, right? When I talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, about the work that we do here, I always try to emphasize, it's beyond race and gender, because people get stuck in, oh, this is what you're talking about. This is the work that you do. And, no, it really is beyond that. Diversity touches all of us every day. And as we mentioned earlier, we're all aging. It's happening to all of us. And when we point the finger, when we make comments that are age, that touch on ageism, we kind of forget about the fact that we're all going to get there, or people forget about it, right? So I really appreciate those comments around ageism. It really is an eye opener for a lot of people. And I was really surprised about the comment that you made that it takes 7 years out of our lives, I was like, oh, wow, yes.
It's a lot. I want those 7 years.
Yeah.
I also think it's empowering to reframe it even for ourselves. I turned 40 this year and I'm so excited about it. And that's not necessarily how everybody feels about it, but because I'm in this space and I want to grow old and I, am all about aging, it's an empowering thing when you can reframe aging even for yourself, not even just for others, but for your own, personal well-being. So I get my 7 years, my plus 7.
Yeah. Looking back, sometimes I'm like, oh, I guess I am growing older, but I look better now than I did, when I was
and feel better, right?
Happiness
I mean, there is
curve,
that
yeah.
wisdom, that confidence that comes along with it too.
We are putting together a video about our Button Up Ageism campaign that Director Wingo mentioned, with our buttons that say "Aging so cool, everyone's doing it." And we had some conversations around ageism, and I will keep that. Oh, thank you.
Oh, I turned off mine. Darn it.
I'm gonna
I'm
tell
right back there.
them. Thank you. And someone said their favorite part of getting old is that they just don't give up anymore. I'll keep that out. We didn't put it in the video, but it's true. There's true documentation of what they call the happiness curve, that we do get happier and more settled in all parts of our life, and we just don't care as much, and that's sometimes a good thing.
It is. And there's so many things I love about working with older people and about knowing older people and having older people in my life in all kinds of areas. But part of that is really about that wisdom and that courage and just being really self-assured, that I think is just awesome. And particularly in an age when we know our youth is really isolated and that their confidence levels are decreasing too, that intergenerational piece just is so important for lots of reasons.
There's a lot of spunk and liveliness in the seniors that are just right here in Franklin County. I've always enjoyed having conversations with them, whether they're talking about my outfit or what they've done for the day or what their grown children have or have not done. It's really a rewarding work. And I'm glad that I am in a space where I'm able to engage with these ladies and serve all of our seniors in Franklin County.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for your time. Before we close this Lunch and Learn, I do want to see all of you can go around and say, how do people get in touch with you? Not just older residents, but anyone that wants to have the services open to their family members, friends, neighbors, anyone that they know. How do they get in touch with you?
Well, here at the Office on Aging, we are on every single social media platform, including TikTok. We have seniors on TikTok.
That's awesome.
People thought I was crazy when I did it, but some of our best content comes out of watching those videos. So you can connect with us on any of our social media platforms, but you can also give us a call at 614-525-6200. We have a team of case managers that are ready and able and willing to answer your call. But those are the best ways to get in touch with us.
Thank you.
We also have social media for the Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging. You can visit us coaaa.org for resources, information on our website, or give our 800 number a call at 1-800-589-7277.
I would just say similarly, reach out. We are also on Twitter and Facebook at AgeFriendlyOH. You can see our buttons there. Send us an email, whether it's directly to me at sheldon.127@osu.edu or our general email agefriendly@osu.edu. And if you want to make a button, we're hosting an event on the 21st here at our offices where folks can come and make a button. We can drop that, make sure it gets dropped into the Facebook chat. That flyer, it's also on our Facebook page, and we'd love to have you.
Thank you. And just so everyone knows, or if you want to pass it down to anyone that you know, this conversation will be uploaded to YouTube under the Franklin County Board of Commissioners YouTube page for anyone that wants to view it later. But yeah, hopefully we see everyone Marissa's event or the Franklin County Office on Aging Clippers Day. Very excited about that event. And if there's nothing else, I just want to thank you all and thank anyone that is watching.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.